My name is Rebecca Morgan. I'm 29 years old, a nurse from Charleston, South Carolina. And just a few months ago, I died. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't my imagination. I was gone, flatlined in a hospital bed after a sudden cardiac arrest. Doctors were rushing, machines screaming, and my body lay still, but I was no longer inside it. What happened next changed everything. I was taken into a light brighter than the sun, yet it didn't burn. It embraced me, and in that light, I saw Jesus. He looked at me, not with judgment, but with a love so intense, so pure. It shattered every fear I ever had. And then, he said something that shook me to my core. Rebecca, I'm going to show you what's coming. In 2025, this message isn't just for me. It's for you. Watch until the end, before it's too late. Who I was. Before it all happened, before all this, I lived a normal life. I wasn't perfect, but I tried to be a good person. I worked long hours at a children's hospital, helping families through the hardest days of their lives. I grew up in a Christian home, but like many people my age, I drifted. I still believed in God, but I wasn't listening anymore. My prayers were rushed, shallow and rare. Deep down, I knew I was spiritually asleep, but I didn't know how lost I truly was until I died. One Saturday morning, after working 3 night shifts in a row, I collapsed in my apartment. No warning, no time to call for help. My heart stopped. By the time paramedics arrived, I had no pulse. They rushed me to Roper St. Francis Hospital in Charleston, where I was pronounced clinically dead for 7 minutes. 7 minutes in this world. But what I saw in those 7 minutes felt like a lifetime. The day everything stopped, my sudden death. I don't remember falling. I just remember the silence. One moment I was reaching for a glass of water. The next, everything went dark. But oddly enough, I didn't feel fear. I felt like I was floating, as if something invisible had lifted me from the weight of the world. I saw my body lying on the floor. I saw the paramedics trying desperately to bring me back. I saw my mother crying on the phone as she rushed to the hospital. I wanted to scream, "I'm here, I'm okay," but no one could hear me. And then, the room disappeared. Everything around me faded, and I was drawn into a tunnel of light. So powerful, so warm. It felt like peace itself had wrapped its arms around me. That was the moment I knew I was no longer in this world. Have you ever felt something you couldn't explain? A moment of peace or a near-death experience? Share it in the comments. I'll be reading every story. Crossing the veil, my encounter with Jesus. I was moving without walking, breathing without lungs, alive, but not in the way I had ever known. The light around me wasn't just bright. It was alive. It pulsed with warmth, beauty, and something deeper, love. Not the kind of love that fades or disappoints, but something eternal. And then, I saw him, Jesus. He stood before me clothed in light, so radiant I could barely look at him, yet I couldn't look away. His eyes were like fire, but filled with compassion. His presence overwhelmed every fear, regret, and shame I carried. It was as if he knew every detail about me, and still loved me completely. He didn't need to speak. His presence spoke straight into my soul, but then he did speak. "Rebecca," he said, "what I'm about to show you is not to frighten, but to awaken. Time is short." I felt my spirit tremble. 2025 is already being written, he said, and the world has no idea what is coming. And with a simple movement of his hand, the light around us shifted. I was no longer just in his presence. I was inside the vision. He was about to reveal the future. and I wasn't ready for what I would see. The revelation. You need to see what's coming. Everything went still. Time, space, gone. And then Jesus looked at me with such intensity that I felt my soul begin to tremble. Rebecca, the world is asleep. Even many who claim to know me have stopped listening. I didn't know how to respond. I could feel the urgency in his voice, like a storm was coming and no one was prepared. Then he raised his hand and the visions began, one by one, like scenes from a prophetic scroll. I was shown glimpses of what would unfold in 2025. It wasn't like watching a movie. It was like living the future before it happened. I could feel people's emotions. I could hear the cries. I could sense the spiritual weight pressing over the earth. Tell them, Jesus said. They need to know. My people must not be caught off guard. Each vision was more intense than the last. And what struck me most was this. None of it was random. Everything had purpose. Everything was leading somewhere. And now, I have to share it with you. Have you ever felt like something big was about to happen in the world? Like we're standing on the edge of something unseen? Type, I feel it in the comments if you've sensed this too. First vision, lies will be celebrated in 2025. In the first vision, I was standing in what looked like a large modern church. Thousands of people were worshipping, but something felt wrong. The words they sang sounded holy, but the presence of God wasn't there. Jesus stood beside me and whispered, "They speak my name, but they do not know me." Suddenly, I saw preachers on massive stages, charismatic, loud, and smiling. But their words were hollow. Truth had been replaced with performance. Scripture was twisted to comfort sin instead of confront it. People cheered louder for what sounded good than for what was good. Then I saw the media. News anchors confidently spreading deception, rewriting reality with polished smiles. And the world clapping, celebrating, sharing it. In 2025, Jesus said, lies will wear the mask of light, and many will follow blindly, because they prefer comfort over truth. I saw teenagers on social media reposting false doctrines. I saw influencers preaching self over sacrifice. And I saw churches, yes, even churches, choosing popularity over purity. But Jesus wasn't angry. He was heartbroken. My people perish for lack of truth, he said. Warn them, Rebecca. My heart shattered. Have you noticed truth being replaced by translately? In church, in culture, even in your own life. Write, I choose truth in the comments if you want to stand for what's real in 2025. Second vision, a wave of awakening will shake the lukewarm thee. Next vision came like a violent wind. I saw cities, New York, Dallas, San Francisco, suddenly shaken. But it wasn't an earthquake. It was spiritual. People began waking up as if from a long dark sleep. Men and women in boardrooms dropped to their knees. Teenagers deleted apps they once worshipped. Families wept and prayed together for the first time in years. This wasn't organized religion. It was raw, real, desperate. I saw the Holy Spirit moving like a wildfire, burning away compromise, indifference and pride. And Jesus said, the lukewarm will no longer survive in this season. The fire will reveal what is real. Some resisted, others surrendered, but the atmosphere had shifted forever. There was no more middle ground. You were either fully His, or you weren't. Then I saw small churches, hidden, humble, overlooked, overflowing with people desperate for truth. Not production, not performance, just presence. This is my mercy before the shaking, Jesus said. This is their chance to return. And I understood. 2025 would not only expose the lies, it would ignite a holy hunger. Have you felt this stirring inside you? Like something in your spirit is waking up again? If so, type "I'm ready" in the comments. Let's declare it together. Third vision, a crisis, will shake the nations. The next vision was unlike anything I've ever seen. The world changed in front of me, fast. In seconds, I saw entire nations thrown into chaos. It started with headlines flashing across the sky, markets crashing, borders closing, nations on edge, banks failing, food shortages, fear spreading like wildfire. Then I saw people, millions, lining up for basic necessities, not just in poor countries, in places we thought were safe. Grocery store shelves empty, gas stations dry, parents weeping because they couldn't feed their children. I saw people glued to their screens, looking for answers, but all they found was more fear, conflicting messages, political leaders blaming each other, divisions deepening, trust evaporating. "This is not punishment," Jesus said beside me. "It is a shaking, so that what cannot be shaken may remain." Then I saw churches again. Some locked their doors out of fear, others open wide, feeding the hungry, praying non-stop, serving like never before. Revival was rising, right in the middle of the storm, but the pressure kept increasing. I saw a global summit, world leaders meeting in secret. They wore suits, but their intentions were dark. They spoke of unity and solutions, but I felt deception swirling around them. One man, tall and commanding, stood in the center. He didn't speak much, but when he did, everyone listened. Jesus turned to me and said, "He is not who they think he is. The spirit of deception prepares the way for him." Suddenly, I saw maps lighting up with conflict. Regions caught in war, cyber attacks, systems collapsing. But in the midst of it all, I also saw something else. A remnant, a small but fierce group of believers, scattered across the globe, praying, fasting, warning, worshipping, not in fear, but in fire. Their faith was unshakable. Their eyes were on Jesus. "These are the ones who will stand," he said. "These are the ones who will lead." And then the vision began to fade. The crisis will come. The systems of this world will tremble, but it won't be the end. It will be the separation, a divine line being drawn between those who trust in man and those who trust in God. Have you sensed that the world is being shaken for a reason? That something bigger is unfolding behind the headlines? Type, "I will not fear," in the comments if you choose to trust Jesus above the chaos. Fourth vision, hidden miracles, will begin to manifest. As the next vision unfolded, the storm faded, and I found myself standing in complete stillness. There was no noise, no flashing headlines, no panic, only peace. Jesus looked at me and smiled. Not the kind of smile that ignores pain, but the kind that knows the end from the beginning. "Now watch what they won't see on the news," he said. Suddenly I saw miracles, real ones, happening in secret places. A man in a dark hospital room, diagnosed with terminal cancer, suddenly gasping as life returned to his body. Nurses falling to their knees, weeping, as monitors blinked back to normal. But no cameras, no reports. Then I saw a woman sitting alone in her car, her face swollen from crying. She was about to end her life. But in the silence, a voice whispered, "I still have a purpose for you." She burst into tears, not of despair, but of hope. That same night, she walked into a small church and never looked back. "I am moving," Jesus said, "but not where pride looks. I'm moving in the hidden places." I saw prayer meetings in basements, children laying hands on their parents, strangers being healed at bus stops, people dreaming of Jesus, who had never even heard his name before. And I saw something else, the hearts of men breaking, so they could finally be healed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, but it was real. Jesus continued, while the world shouts in fear, I will whisper in love, and my sheep will hear my voice. Then I saw homes glowing with light, like little beacons in the darkness, families praying, teenagers worshipping, marriages restored, peace where there used to be screaming, joy where there used to be silence. This was the quiet revival, the invisible fire, the beginning of the harvest. Have you witnessed something unexplainable, something that felt like God reaching into your life? Share it in the comments. Your story could be the miracle someone else needs to hear. Fifth vision, the separation of those who belong to God. The next vision was heavier, like the air itself grew thick with weight. I could feel the gravity of it in my spirit before a single image appeared. Then I saw a large field, divided down the center by a glowing line of fire. On one side stood people clothed in light, humble, prayerful, radiant. On the other side, a crowd that looked almost the same, but there was something off. Their faces were distracted. Their hands were full of idols, comfort, money, status, sin dressed as self-love. Jesus turned to me and said, they all claimed my name, but now the line is drawn. Suddenly, I saw churches split, not by buildings or denominations, but by truth. Leaders who once stood boldly now stepping back, silenced by pressure, popularity, or fear. But others, unexpected voices, unknown names, began to rise, not with pride, with conviction. Their words pierced through the fog. Then I saw homes divided, families torn not by hatred, but by truth. A wife on her knees crying out for her children. A son refusing to compromise his faith, even when mocked by his own father. The cost of following Jesus was becoming visible, unavoidable, eternal. This is not rejection, Jesus said. This is refinement. I'm not punishing them. I'm purifying them. The line of fire grew brighter. I saw people standing at the edge, hesitating, one step toward God, or one step back, into darkness. Tears ran down their faces. I could feel their battle, the pull of the world, and the call of eternity. But one thing became clear. There was no more middle. Lukewarm would no longer survive. Silence would no longer protect, and cultural Christianity would no longer be enough. This was the moment of separation. I am gathering my remnant, Jesus said. Not the perfect, but the surrendered. I felt his heart breaking for those still clinging to shadows. But I also felt his fierce love for those who would lay it all down. Are you willing to cross that line? To let go of everything that keeps you from God? Write I belong to Jesus in the comments if you choose his fire over comfort, his truth over approval. The final vision came with a silence that felt unnatural. I was taken to a great city, glittering, advanced, powerful. Crowds filled the streets, watching massive screens as a man stood before the world. He looked flawless, charismatic, calm. His voice was soothing, his words poetic. He spoke of peace, unity, and a new future, and the world adored him. This, Jesus said, is the one they've been waiting for, but not the one they truly need. I felt a chill in my spirit, because this man, this leader, didn't rage against God. He didn't threaten the church with violence. No, he seduced them with promises, with solutions, with hope, without holiness. Then I saw him perform miracles, or at least what looked like miracles. People were healed. Fire came from the sky. A global currency emerged, Borders began to dissolve. Nations agreed to follow his guidance. But underneath it all was a darkness so ancient it had no beginning. He began rewriting truth, redefining identity, condemning those who refused to conform. Suddenly, believers became the enemy, not because they attacked him, but because they wouldn't worship him. Churches were split. Again, some bowed to him, others went underground. Martyrs rose like flames in the dark. And then, I saw a woman, old, poor, sick, alone in a dark room with only a Bible and a candle. She refused to deny Jesus, and in that moment, I saw the heavens open. "This is my bride," Jesus whispered. "She is ready." Then I looked back at the city, and the man's face changed. For a brief second, I saw what was hiding underneath. A beast. Eyes full of hatred. A spirit ancient, cold, and violent. But no one saw it, except the ones who knew the real Jesus. "He will rise," Jesus said, "but he will not reign forever." Suddenly, I saw the clouds rip apart. Jesus, returning in glory, in fire, in power, shouting with the voice of eternity itself. And the imposter, gone, like smoke in a storm. The deception was strong, but the King was stronger. Have you been discerning this shift in the spirit? Do you feel that the deceiver is already laying his foundation? If you're watching, if your eyes are open, type, "I will not bow," in the comments. When the final vision faded, I was back in the light. Jesus stood before me, not with thunder or wrath, but with eyes full of mercy. "You must tell them," he said softly. "Time is shorter than they think. Many are asleep, many are distracted. But my return is not far." Tears streamed down my face, not from fear, but from urgency, the kind that shakes you awake in the middle of the night with a burden you can't ignore. "Tell them I love them," he said. "Tell them I am still calling. Even now, even in their mess, my arms are open." And then I woke up, back in that hospital bed, gasping for air, doctors stunned. But I came back different. I came back with a mission. Not everyone will believe me. Not everyone will listen. But I'm not here for likes. I'm here for souls. You don't have to understand everything that's coming. You just need to be ready to turn back to Jesus, to open your heart, to choose light over darkness. The world is changing. 2025 is closer than we think. And this is your warning, but it's also your invitation. If this message touched something deep inside of you, don't leave without taking a step. Type in the comments what spoke to your heart, and if you're ready to surrender everything to Jesus, just type, "I'm his," and please share this video, not for me, but for the one person scrolling right now who's thinking about giving up. They need to know God sees them. He's calling them, and he hasn't given up. Stay awake, stay faithful, stay watching. Jesus is coming.